Hi everyone, I wish this could be an upbeat video, but we are now presently in the 9 days which lead up to the 9th of Av, where we commemorate and we cry over the destruction of not one but two holy temples in Jerusalem. And it's so sad because we don't even really understand what that means, what those temples were like and what they actually represented. But if you do some learning, you will find that it was about clarity. It was about God's presence was felt and known in the world, and that has been diminished, and so too we diminish our joy. The Parsha of Devarim is read the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av, the day in which we will fast. Moshe's farewell address to the Jewish people as the new generation is going to embark on entering and conquering Eretz Yisrael. And he reminds them of the different locations where the Jewish people were for the 40 years. But all these locations are not familiar to us. And Rashi brings us a midrash that tells us the names of these locations are actually an allusion to the sins that the Jewish people committed while they were in the Midbar. And Rashi further points out that Moshe is teaching us that why these are allusions as opposed to calling out the locations and the sins for what they were. Why is he hinting? Why is he beating around the bush? Because he wants to lessen the embarrassment for the Jewish people. And so Moshe teaches us that when we often offer remonstration, rebuke to others, we should do it in a way that lessens any embarrassment to that person. Otherwise, who's going to want to receive that? I know myself personally, if someone points out my shortcomings, and especially if they do it in a way that's embarrassing, very hard to accept it. You become defensive, at least I do. The Rambam actually teaches us that when you offer remonstration, and let me be clear, this is a mitzvah in the Torah. It is a positive mitzvah, hocheach tochiach, to point out someone's shortcomings. But it's a very, very delicate and complicated mitzvah to fulfill properly, that the Rambam teaches us that it has to be done with a pleasant voice, a soft voice, and only the intention, the motivation must be for that person's betterment. But if you know the person's not going to listen, or the person's going to come to hate you, you're better off not offering that remonstration. As a matter of fact, we are told in a Gemara, and I want to thank Rabbi Dr. Gidon Rothstein, who pointed out a Gemara in Erechin 16b, Tet Zayin Amid Bet, where there's a discussion of how one can offer remonstration and how one can receive it. And the rabbis are very pessimistic. And they say, I don't think there's a generation who knows how to receive remonstration. And one of the rabbis says, I don't even know if there's a generation that knows how to properly give remonstration. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and he says, well, I've had a different experience. I often would point out Rabbi Akiva's shortcomings to his Rebbe, and he would get in trouble, and yet Rabbi Akiva would come to love me. Really? Rabbi Akiva came to love this guy who seems to be like a snitch? Why didn't, number one, he go to Rabbi Akiva directly? And two, you're telling me when someone points out your shortcomings, you're going to come to love them? You know, what is he talking about? And yet, I think the brilliance in this Gemara is the following. When you're offering remonstration, sometimes it's very difficult to go to the person directly, but perhaps go to a friend, go to a teacher, to a rabbi, because maybe they have that relationship, they can point it out to them. And if you can be like Rabbi Akiva, that you can receive it with love, then you fulfill what Mishlei tells us, Al tocheach leitz ben yisenecha, the Gemara says, don't offer remonstration to someone who's a scoffer, but hocheach lechacham havecha. But if you offer remonstration, reproof to a wise person, then they will come to love you. And so that's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri teaches us that Rabbi Akiva was really a great man. Why? Because when someone pointed out his shortcomings, he said, thank you, because I want to grow. Not easy receiving rebuke or when people pointing out, they call it constructive criticism. And yet this is a mitzvah in the Torah. And again, the Torah doesn't give us mitzvahs we can't do. We just have to be smart about it. But when we hear from our spouses, from our family members, our siblings, community members, and perhaps even people we're really not close with, and they point something out to us that we should be doing better, we could be defensive and say, hey, mind your own business. Or we can say, let me think about that. I really appreciate it. And that's what these 9 days offer us, an opportunity to look. And I guess if you're really lucky, you'll have a friend in your life, you'll have a spouse in your life, you'll have parents in your life who will offer that to you so that you can grow and become the better person. And perhaps if we can live in a society that it's based on a Torah value, that we're always looking to improve, maybe Hashem will reconsider and move back in and rebuild that third Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Gidon Rothstein has these talks called Redemption to Consolation on the VBM Torah website. I will list that link on the YouTube page. This comes from lesson number 8. I want to thank him in advance, and I want to wish everybody a meaningful fast, but perhaps maybe yet we still won't have to fast. And if we do, I only pray that it's our last fast. If you like what you hear, pass it on. Shabbat Shalom.